Hello and welcome everyone, and I want to say hello and welcome to new patrons who've recently signed up. I'm really happy you decided to do that, and I also want to thank for all of the pledges from all of you this month and all of the other months. You're really helping me out. So here's the iPhone 6 battery replacement video. I promised you. I'm sorry it took some time, but when I wanted to do it, I got sick, and then I got sidetracked with my album, and now I'm here. This iPhone 6 battery replacement was one of the worst things I've ever done. And a lot of you would ask me, why didn't you just go to an iFixit or whatever? I've heard several different chains being mentioned. I wanted to document it for my channel. The problem was that after watching through my videos, I realized that the angling was wrong, the lighting was wrong, everything was wrong. I missed out some of the footage because I had to turn the camera off. I didn't really get tutorial material because some of it is missing. The first thing you have to do basically is just to remove the two screws down at the bottom. And this is the problem I had at first because I've never ever opened up an iDevice before in my life. I've seen the insides on pictures and on videos, but I've never done it myself. And so I had no tools for it. And you know, these tech companies like Apple and Samsung, Sony, they like doing stuff hard for people, right? Especially Apple. They like designing their own screw heads. So you need special screwdrivers and stuff so that regular people can't open up their stuff, you know, and mess with it. I managed to find a kit made by a company named Sign, but I couldn't find any information on this company anywhere on the web. So if any of you can find it, please let me know. This Sign kit included everything that you needed because you need a battery, of course, and then you need adhesive strips. You need a Phillips screw head for the two screws at the bottom where the lightning connector is on the chassis of the iPhone 6s specifically. And then you also need the Phillips screw head, very tiny Phillips screw head, because these screws are very tiny. I don't have two big hands, but I was so afraid I was going to drop these screws when I actually had them in my hand. And so you also get a tweezer. You need that for the adhesive strip, and the adhesive strip is also included. You have a plectrum for prying the screen of the chassis, and you also have a prying tool, and you also have this instruction, but there's something wrong with these instructions. Well, let's get to that later on. So first you remove the screws at the bottom. Next comes trying to get the screen off your chassis. It's actually fixed with adhesive, water sealing adhesive around the frame of the chassis, and that sticks to the screen. And doing this is hard because you have to use a suction cup. By the way, the suction cup is also included in the package. And you put the suction cup as close to one of the corners as you can, and then you start pulling. And this is hard on an iPhone 6 because the iPhone 6s has a curved, rounded bevel. And when you get sweaty hands, which you do when you're nervous, it's going to be hard to grip and hold the phone. And you're pulling on the suction cup and you're holding the phone, and you have two hands only. So it would be good to have a friend with you, or maybe a brother, sister, wife, someone in the vicinity helping you with this, because at the same time, you need to get a prying tool in there. In this case, I used the plectrum because that was what they recommended doing, I think. Let me check here. No, I just went and fetched the manual. Yeah, they recommend getting the plectrum in there. So you basically just open up just a slit for the between the screen and the chassis, and then you get the plectrum in there, and you start, you know, twisting it and bending it and trying to get the adhesive strip to let go of the screen. And this is nerve-wracking because you're actually, when you're pulling on the screen, you can see the screen bend. It's not just glass, it's a sapphire screen, so it's kind of a mixed thing. It's more durable and than glass, harder to scratch, and it actually bends. But that is really nerve-wracking because what if you pull too hard, ripping the screen off too fast, so you end up damaging the connector connected from the screen to the chassis, or the circuit board in the chassis. And it took me quite some time, and you can see that prying and me just trying to find a way of doing it, and I was losing grip of the phone, getting sweatier and more frustrated. And I knew I couldn't afford a new phone if I broke this one. So either way, when I actually got it open, I realized that it was way too hard to work with the phone by doing it the way that they actually said, that you were supposed to hold the screen at a 90 degrees angle and work with it like that, because from that point you have to unscrew a plate holding down the connector for the battery. And at the same time, you have to make sure you don't get the screen bent over 90 degrees, because when you do that, you're pulling on the connector, the actual connector going from the screen to the circuit board itself. If you do that, you might end up damaging it. And if you damage that part, you need a new screen. Yeah, I ended up shutting off the cameras, and I went looking for with the title on YouTube. I wrote the proper way of replacing iPhone 6 battery. I found a video title like that, and in that video, that person showed the viewers a way of actually removing the screen. So I should have thought of that first, right? But I was so nervous I couldn't think straight. So I removed that plate holding the 3 connectors going from the circuit board to the screen. And once I did that, I plopped off the connectors, which are really tiny and feel really brittle. It's not funny at all. It's not fun at all doing this replacement, but you get the screen off there. When you have it off, suddenly you're free to work with the chassis and the circuit board. Now, from this point on, all you have to do is to remove the battery. And here I did a mistake. I followed the instructions, looking at the picture inside the sign manual. It shows you pulling the strips right up vertically. When you do that, you will break it off, okay? They broke off under the lithium battery. I emphasize the lithium here because here's something you need to know if you didn't. Lithium batteries have a chemical mixture in it that will self-combust when mixed with air. They produce chemical fires and chemical smoke, which is really, really, really poisonous and bad for your health. Plus, they will just burn really intensely and they won't stop burning. So, my message is, do not, under any circumstances, pull the battery adhesive strips straight up. You make sure you pull them out horizontally, and you have to, you don't tug at them and try to force them out. You hold them and stretch them until you hear a sound coming off from the strip. You can hear it let go. And you do that little by little, especially if your phone is old and this hasn't been done before. If the strip is new, I read somewhere that it's easier to remove the strip, but not when they're older. So you tug at them a little bit, and then you will feel it letting go, and then you keep on pulling on it. And look at this, look at this. I'm doing it, and I'm pulling, and I'm pulling, and I'm pulling, and I'm pulling, but I'm letting the tape just let go by itself. Once you've done that, the battery's gone. But let's go back a bit, because I broke it off. And why I've been talking about lithium batteries self-combusting? Well, if you end up doing it like me, breaking off the adhesive strip, you will have to bend the battery in order to get a hold of the adhesive strips with the tweezers, which is going to be hard because you're going to have to bend it up a big amount in order to get the tweezers under there, or whatever tool you're using. You don't want to use sharp metal tools here, or even sharp plastic tools like I did, because I used a prying tool and also the plectrum. Because if you end up poking a hole through the lithium battery casing, then you're exposing the insides to air, and it can self-combust. And then you have a chemical fire on your hand, and that's not going to be good for you or anyone else in the vicinity. So this was the most nerve-wracking thing I've ever done. Prying that battery. You know, you should never ever bend a lithium battery even, because you can end up doing stuff to it which you're not supposed to. So I had to bend, I had to pry to get a hold of the adhesive strips. And if you do it that way, be careful. Use soft tools. Don't bend it too much. Try to do this as little as you can. But when you get a hold of it, just get the adhesive strips, pull them out. Don't tug hard. Don't break it off again. Just hold it. Let it just let go of the chassis and the battery itself. They're designed that way. And I had 2 strips that I had to do this with. But I did. I got it out. And getting the new strips in there were easy enough. Wasn't that hard. Just put down the battery, made sure to line it up, looked at it first without the strips. When you've placed down your battery on the strips, the connector needs to line up properly with the connection so that it doesn't, you're not crinking the cable or anything, because it's a really thin, brittle, flat cable. If you break that off, you have to make sure that the end of the strips where you're supposed to pull it the next time you want to change out the battery, it needs to be vertically with the battery so you can actually reach them, and then you stick them onto the top of the battery. You get it in there. Okay, so when you put that down, you screw down the metal, and then you need to get the screen back. So you need to get the screen connectors back, and there's an order to these, but it's easy to find the order because the connectors are placed on top of each other in a certain way. You just plop them in there. Just make sure you press on each connector. There's like a snapping feeling to them when they actually plop in there right. Pressed on them with the prying tool. I don't want to touch the circuit board with my fingers because I might be loaded with static electricity. That might mess up the phone. That's always, I should have said that at the beginning, that's always a risk you run into, actually shocking the board yourself with the built up electricity you have in your body, the static electricity. And then you screw the plate down over it. Once the battery connector and the screen and everything are in there, you want to just fold down the screen and turn the phone on to see that everything works. Because if you get lines or anything weird looking on the screen, then you need to redo the screen connection. You need to plop them off again and plop them down. So maybe not screw down the plate holding the connectors first, just test it out. I did, and it worked for me. And then you put the screen back on the chassis and press it in there snugly, and you press around the edges. I never pressed down the middle because I was afraid I was going to press too hard, but just at the edges of it. And remember now that if you're doing this on a water protected device, as soon as you remove your screen, you're destroying the adhesive strip holding the screen against the chassis. So you're literally destroying the waterproofing. Okay, so it's no longer waterproof. You can get moist in there. I don't know how Apple does it if you send it into them, if they properly do that. I don't know. When it's all put together, you have to remember to put in the 2 screws down at the bottom at the lightning connector. And when that's done, you're done. Now, in the manual, it says that you should charge the battery full and let it drain to 50% or 55% about 5 times before the battery reaches its normal operating conditions or something like that. So I did that the first days. And you know what? I now have a phone with a replaced battery. And also, when I go out filming, I used to have the problem of my phone dying when it got cold outside. So during winters, the phone died when I tried to film. But now I can be out filming for over an hour without the phone dying, with the screen at the brightest. And oh, it's so great. My sessions are now saved. It feels great. I managed to do it. It was nerve-wracking. Do I recommend it to someone else? I really don't. But of course you can. I don't recommend it because it was horrible. It was horrible doing it. Would I do it again? Well, I'm gonna have to my to Sophia's phone, my significant other. I'm gonna do it to an iPhone 5, and so that's a new model. I don't know how to do it on. But apparently the tools are supposed to fit there too, that I got in this signed package. So yeah, I hope you think that this was interesting. I decided to do this more of a talk through video more than a completely really hardly edited one, because I feel it was important to really let you know how it was, and I could only do that if I talked you through the whole process. So thank you so much for watching, and yeah, I'll see you in the next Patreon video. As usual, I wish you a very productive week. Now go finger all of your stuff and have a lot of fun doing it.